I made some notes. I've been making notes for a long time thinking about this. Probably too long. But I think it's first important for me to say thank you. These men, your faculty that are in this room right now, they're really important to me. I have taken their words, their actions, their impressions with me all over the world, more than 5 dozen countries, in all sorts of scenarios. And the things I learned here at the Academy saved lives. No bones about it. It gave me a framework for thinking that allowed me to consider and apply judgment in novel ways. And it gave me a basis of knowledge that I could compare situations to, what Swedenborg calls correspondences. That was uncanny and uncommon and appreciated and valued. And because of that, over the course of my career, I enjoyed a lot of success and some catastrophic failures. But I had a lot of people. I had a great team. I knew how to form a great tribe, join great tribes, keep great tribes around me, and continuously just work to do the right thing together and to make things better. And I learned those lessons here, first, at Stewart Hall. I was 15. I left home. It was my sophomore year. And I joined a tribe, one of the first tribes that I had really joined. That was Phi Alpha. We learned and taught each other how to do simple everyday things like laundry and to resolve conflict without fistfights, or maybe just hybrid of like some sort of wrestling fistfight and arguing and a house master. But we all really benefited. And if you fast forward nearly 20 years, I'm sitting in my truck parked outside of my house in Colorado Springs. My marriage is on the rocks. I'm about to retire from the Marine Corps. I'm really going through a hard time. And I had a message from a really good friend of mine in Phi Alpha. We were captains of the wrestling team together when he was a junior and I was a senior. We worked together in tandem. We had very parallel career paths. He was a Green Beret. I was a Marine Special Operations, or MARSOC, Marine Raider. These are comparable in USOCOM's ontology. And he just called me randomly to say, hey, what's up? I was thinking about you. And we chatted and we talked about life and we talked a little bit. We spoke for 2 hours. It was one of those driveway moments where it was cold and I just didn't want to go inside just yet. And we talked about Coach Irwin, who we both knew. We talked about Coach Boyce, we talked about Coach Adams, we talked about Coach Royer. We talked about our times together at Stewart Hall and how we shared them and what they meant to us over the last 20 years. Adam Klippenstein and I are still very good friends. His wife Kendall was in my class. We're good friends. Our children have played together. We have served in combat zones with the same people in the same combat zones. We've experienced life together in tandem, even if we weren't physically co-located in the same spot. I had a person that was part of my tribe that I developed and established here, thanks to this institution. And 20 years later, we were able to sit down, make comparisons, and just be there for each other and show up. And I think that's really powerful. And I think that when I look back 20 years, I really value all of that that's implied, because it was demonstrably evident to me over and over and over again how fortunate I was to be able to tend my spiritual and mental and physical garden here during those years. So, like Coach Irwin had said, I have plenty of hats. I've done plenty of things embarrassing, some wrong, some right. I'm always trying to do the right thing. That is something that was imprinted on me here, once by Chuck Blair, once by Coach Irwin, and most likely about 15,000 times by Coach Reuter, who I believe I might have been a huge thorn in his paw at one point, but we're good. I'm also a disabled combat veteran. I also have PTSD. I also have relationship issues, just like everybody. And I want you to know this because if I could go back and talk to myself at 18, I would want myself to know how important and wonderful it is to experience good and bad, and to sit with both and ponder and reflect about it. And what's really important about this particular institution is the library of thought and contemplation that exists in metaphor and correspondence in the study of Swedenborg's writings. And that might kind of hit or not hit, you know, but it is time and time again proven to me, anecdotally, in my experience, how much I value having thought partnership, mentorship, relationships with the people that I met here first. So I really just wanted to start with that because that's what matters most to me. If I could step into a time machine and talk to myself. How are we on time right now? Right.
7 minutes.
Take another 5.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So more importantly, and that's to say, like, this might be a little bit of a reference that goes back too far, but kind of like a highwayman. And I know that I'm pretty good, or I've been told that I'm pretty good at spinning a yarn, which is telling a tall tale or shooting the whatever with people. Okay? And I'm good at that because one of the other things that I've really got a lot out of here was English and literature. And I was exposed to a canon of books that I thought were really, really important. They resonated with me in an uncommon way, the way that books had it before. And I took them with me, and I used them anywhere that I thought that they were applicable. And that's the power of a story. A story is how we use language to craft concepts and play with allegories, models, in our minds, and with each other, to work out complex and abstract problems, to work through conflict, to get the job done, to do the right thing. It's all stories. So, you know, I really want to again reiterate the importance of thanks, because some of these men here that are your faculty were also my English teachers. I have iteratively read Kurt Vonnegut over and over and over again. I understand that we've made room for other authors, and that's fine. I love him, and I'm going to mention him. And I learned that from, I believe, your class, Mr. Reuter. I love Shakespeare. The last time that I heard Shakespeare in person, I was sitting in the National Opera House in Oslo, Norway. And I had gotten tickets to an opening night of a version of Hamlet that they had produced there in-house, because it's a wonderful production company, the Oslo National Opera Ballet. And they were doing Hamlet, and it really just kind of struck me that every time that I've heard this, it never really resonated. Probably won't for you, but it might. You know, just what are your thoughts on this? To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether it is nobler of the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more. And biasly to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. There's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come. When we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. I have been thinking about versions of that soliloquy since the first time that I heard it, and I never put it together until last year when I was sitting in the Oslo Opera House watching this performance by the Oslo Opera and Ballet Company. It was amazing. I learned that here. I first heard that soliloquy and first discussed that soliloquy in AP English, I think. And I have contemplated it without even knowing it for 20 years, every time that I've strapped up my boots and went into battle and didn't know who was coming home today. That's how important these words are, and that's why the sentiment about them is what's really important. The correspondence and how these things play out from allegory to real life and encode what our perception of the right thing to do is. So if I could give one piece of advice, additional, unsolicited, prescriptive, to my 18-year-old self, I would encourage myself to keep reading, keep discovering, keep exploring. One thing I did really well, I didn't let people tell me no who didn't have the authority to say yes. One thing I did really poorly is I didn't recognize or take the time to recognize what was behind the no, only to know whether or not I needed to listen to it or not. I believe now, if I could tell myself that, I would say take time. When you hear no, no means no, but it also means a lot of things. It's very complex. And listening to people about why they don't want to do the right thing or what you perceive to be the right thing is probably one of the most valuable lessons that I need going forward now at almost 40. So I hope maybe it means something for you guys. This whole thing can be summed up just with this, sometimes I think about really heady stuff, like what's the meaning of life and the ordinance of life and the universe, and I talked a lot about that in my retirement speech tonight. I thought it was fun. But what it really boils down to is something Kurt Vonnegut said, and I cited this then too. The purpose of a human life, being roughly 100 years, and I'm paraphrasing, is to be the ears and the eyes and the consciousness of the creator of the universe, and to love those who show up to be loved. And what that means to me is, one, be the eyes and ears, that part makes sense. You have this gift. You're a human. You have human cognition and spirituality and friends and relationships, and this wonderful gift of a 100-year life, give or take. You have absolutely no idea how much time you actually have. You only know that it is finite, and you just have one life to live that you are aware of right now. Make sense of it. Love those who show up to be loved. Sometimes we want people to show up to be loved and they're not ready, or we aren't ready. But you'll see who shows up. Adam Klippenstein showed up for me periodically throughout my career. I showed up for him periodically. I've reached back here periodically. I spoke to my coaches. I kept them with me. We love each other just for showing up to be loved, and being ready to be loved, and being ready to love each other. And I think that that's something that maybe also I started thinking about here in religion class. Enjoy the ride. What's the stake, or what is the point in surviving after all, if you can't be grateful for living? And fighting position improvement, that's something I learned in the Marine Corps. You're always going to, there is nobody worse than the person that you inherit your fighting position from, okay? Because whatever it is, they've left it in an absolute state of something that you don't agree with, no matter what. The person that you do a turnover with is the most hated person in the next 3 months or 6 months of your life, period. Because you really just dislike all the things that they are there to tell you about yourself. So by fighting position improvement, a fighting position being like the trenches, when things are really, really terrible, you just do your best to figure out how to make a little bit of sanctuary when everything else looks like a hellscape, so that you can figure out your own stuff and turn over something that's just incrementally better, just better enough than what you inherited. That's it. That's all you gotta do. The bar is that low.